Okay, let's start with a big question. What if protecting our planet, what if that wasn't just a good idea, but a fundamental human right? Today, we're going to dive into a really powerful concept that connects our own personal dignity with the health of our environment. It's called Iura Viridia, and believe me, it's completely reshaping how we think about justice.
We take certain rights for granted in a just society, right? But think about this. What about the very foundation of our existence? The air we breathe, the water we drink. Shouldn't a healthy environment be considered just as essential? I mean, really, that's the core question we're going to tackle here.
All right, so to really get our heads around this big idea, we first have to understand why these two worlds, human rights and environmentalism, have so often been kept in completely separate boxes.
Yeah, think about it. On one side, you've got all the stuff about law, civics, and human dignity. And then way over on the other side, you have ecology, conservation, and planetary health. For the longest time, these have been treated like they're driving in totally separate lanes with different destinations. But are they really so disconnected? Let's see.
Okay, let's start by building a solid foundation. We're going to look at the first of these pillars, the whole concept of human rights.
So what is a human right exactly? Well, when you boil it all down, it's something you're entitled to just for being human. Simple as that. It's not something a government gives you, which means it's not something they can take away. It's really the absolute baseline for living a life with dignity and freedom. And these rights, they're built on some seriously powerful principles. They're universal. That means they apply to everyone, everywhere. No exceptions. They're inalienable, so you can't have them taken away. And this is crucial. They're all interconnected and indivisible. You can't just pick and choose which rights matter and which ones don't.
All right, so we've got the human rights piece of the puzzle. Now let's look at the other side of the equation, the environment.
And this right here, this lays out that traditional divide perfectly. See, the human rights world has been all about individual dignity, right? Using legal protections to fight for social justice. Meanwhile, the environmental folks have been focused on planetary health, using policy and regulations to keep our ecosystems in balance. They've had totally different tools and honestly different immediate goals.
But what happens when those two worlds smash into each other? What happens when a polluted river means a whole community can't get safe drinking water, which is, their right to health? Or when climate change forces millions from their homes, impacting their right to security and a place to live? All of a sudden, those separate worlds don't seem so separate anymore, do they?
And it's right there, at that exact collision point, that the big idea we're talking about today finally comes into focus. This is where we get to Iura Viridia. That's the name for this powerful new idea. It basically says that the state of our environment isn't just a matter of policy, it's fundamentally a human rights issue. Or, to put it even more simply, it's the right to a healthy planet. And that, right there, is a total game changer. Think about the shift that creates. If a healthy environment is a right, then protecting it is no longer just a nice thing to do. It becomes a duty, a real legal and moral obligation that governments and institutions have to uphold, just like the right to free speech or fair trial. And hey, this isn't just some abstract, high-level idea. It has really tangible parts. We're talking about the right to breathe clean air, the right to drink safe water, the right to a stable climate, and to live in a world that's buzzing with biodiversity. And just as important, the right to actually know what's going on with the health of your environment.
But look, an idea this revolutionary can't just stay in academic papers or courtrooms. For it to really take hold, for it to mean something, it has to be shared and understood by everyone. And that's where education comes into the picture.
In fact, the source material for this whole explainer points this out directly. This idea, Iura Viridia, isn't being locked away for just legal experts to debate. Nope, it's actually being introduced as a new general education class to make it accessible to a whole new generation.
So what's the goal of teaching this stuff? Well, it really breaks down into three parts. First, it's about building awareness, helping people really see the connection between our own well-being and the planet's health. Second, it's about fostering stewardship, cultivating that sense of personal and collective responsibility. And finally, it's about empowering people, giving them the tools they need to actually stand up and advocate for this. Right.
So, at the end of the day, this is about so much more than just one class or one concept. It's really about creating a new generation of informed, engaged global citizens. It's about building a new, shared understanding, a whole new baseline for how we see our relationship with the planet.
Which leaves us with one final pre-critical question to chew on. If we really accept this idea of Iura Viridia, that a healthy planet is a fundamental human right, then who's responsible for protecting it? Is it just governments? Is it up to big corporations? Or does recognizing it as a fundamental right mean it becomes a shared duty for every single one of us? Now that's something to think about.